your narrative essay is probably going to make use of another kind of paragraph as well, a descriptive paragraph. And descriptive paragraphs really help to set the scene for the action that's about to take place. Again, I want to highlight this example that comes from your Rules for Writers textbook. And we'll just zoom in, read through the example, and I'm going to point out a couple of things that the writer is doing that you may want to imitate in your own writing. So, what is a descriptive paragraph? A descriptive paragraph sketches a portrait of a person, a place, or a thing by using concrete and specific details that appeal to one or more of our senses. The more concrete and the more specific the details are, the stronger the description is going to be. And when we think about those senses, what we're talking about are sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. And so the language that we use should really evoke those senses for the reader. The example that follows is going to talk about the grasshopper invasions that devastated a Midwestern landscape in the United States in the late 1860s. So let's go ahead and take a look at the example. They came like dive bombers out of the West. They came by the millions with the rustle of their wings roaring overhead. They came in waves like the rolls of the sea, descending with a terrifying speed, breaking now and again like a mighty surf. They came with the force of a willow, and they formed a huge, ominous, dark brown cloud that eclipsed the sun. They dipped and touched the earth, hitting objects and people like hailstones, but they were not hail. These were live demons. They popped, snapped, crackled, and roared. They were dark brown, an inch or longer in length, plump in the middle and tapered at the ends. They had transparent wings and slender legs, and two black eyes that flashed with fierce intelligence. So, I think this is an incredibly effective paragraph. The description is frightening and disgusting all at the same time. Some of the things that you may want to pause the video now and reread the paragraph to yourself. Take a moment to see if you on your own can find some of the sensory imagery that the writer is using. But I'm going to go ahead and just point some of it out myself. So the sentence begins with a really sort of sharp image. They came like dive bombers out of the West. The writer is beginning with a simile comparing the insects to these dive bombers. Then we get the sound, the rustle of the wings, the roaring overhead. And the waves we can both see and we can hear them. Right? The waves, the rolls of the sea, sort of like the sound, the crashing, and the speed we get. Then we get the description of them as huge, ominous, dark brown cloud, and that's a visual, it's something that we can see. And then again, we shift to sound words. They popped, snapped, crackled, and roared. So when you were writing your own when you were writing your own descriptive paragraphs, which you may use in your narration, it's important to think about how you can use language that appeals to sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. We don't really get taste or smell in here, but we get a little bit of touch and mostly visual and auditory. The other thing I want to point out about this paragraph is that it really effectively uses parallelism, which is something that we've talked about in the past. Notice the way that the sentences all begin the same. They came, they came, they came, they came. Now, there's a literary term for this. It's called an anaphora. Anaphora is a word that we use when every sentence in a poem or every sentence in a piece of writing begins in the exact same way. But there's also parallelism at work in the fact that the sentences are largely structured the same way throughout until we get to this sentence, which then sets up a contrast. The opening of the descriptive paragraph tells us what they look like and what they sound like. And then when we get to this sentence that breaks that they came pattern, we're then finally introduced to the fact that this is not what it was described to be, but they're actually live, what the writer calls demons. and we, as the description goes on, come to learn of them as insects. So visit this paragraph in your Rules for Writers textbook, and much like the narrative paragraph that I pointed to in the last video, you want to use this as inspiration for your own writing. Think about how you can use those sensory details along with the narration in order to create an effective narrative